My name is Jessica. I'm going into my third year of biochemistry and genetics, and you're listening to 94.9 CHRW.
You're listening to the Forum on CHRW. My name is David Seston. This project is designed to be a free and open area for students to ask the hard questions. It is for the students, by the students, and instead of a space for lecturers and academics, it's for the average student to ask questions and say what's on their mind without fear, in the hopes of sparking conversations around campus and around the world. And we're back. I keep saying that. I really need something better. It's just because we haven't gone anywhere. We were just sitting here listening to the commercials. And so we're back and we're talking about relationships, and it's me, David, hi, Greg, Iman, and Della again, and I sort of have a really interesting one for you guys, because we were just before the break talking about how you need to find yourself and understand a little bit about yourself and how to find out what you're willing to compromise for your partner and what you're not willing to compromise for your partner. But at the same time, you're willing to just jump into bed with a guy before even knowing his number, or a girl. How does that sync up?
I think the idea of a relationship means commitment. And that means like giving more of yourself. And I think that the physical aspect of like intimacy has detached itself from that in our age group specifically. I think that like jumping into bed with someone is not at all the same in terms of how we view it as like being in an actual committed relationship with someone and like giving yourself emotionally to them. It's different, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have completely detached the two. I think you talk about both on very different levels, and the sex that you have once you're in a relationship has a whole nother meaning than the sex that you have with someone that you don't really know. And I don't know if it's just the Western culture or if it's just a thing that's widespread in this generation, in this era, but it has almost no significance when it comes to whether you're compatible or not. You're not thinking whether you're compatible or not when you're having sex with someone who you just met. If there's no other level of meaning to it, you can just not call them back the next day, and you both leave. I don't know if it's a gain or a lose, but you just you don't think about that.
I'm gonna let Greg comment on that while I process that one. That's
Yeah, I'm hesitant to completely divorce the two. For me, it's more just the sexual aspect of it is the mitigating factor, and it's as close as you can get to a relationship without actually having to give up anything, without actually having to discover anything about yourself or the other person. It's just something that you can do to get that intimacy, however temporary and however instantly, I guess, just to have it. Fundamentally, I think humans all want intimate relationships. It's just kind of the degree to which they want to work for them and the degree to which they want to keep them. And kind of having casual sex as a university student when you don't want to figure all that out yet is a way to kind of have that without really having it.
Yeah, I think girls put a bit more emotions, and it connects a bit more of significant. Well, this is where the sexism comes in. But for me personally, and who I've spoke to in my friend group, is girls always seem to be a little bit more, if not significantly more, attached to the actual person rather than just that one night they spent together. Whereas guys are more okay with even with doing that with someone who they're not like entirely like even 100% attracted to. I don't know if Greg wants to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Greg, do you want to comment on that one before I launch into it, or?
I'm gonna let you do your thing, but for me, I'm just gonna point out that a lot of that I think is just stigma. Because there is the kind of sexist idea that women shouldn't be sleeping with as many partners as men should. Then they kind of will hide behind that and say that kind of they want more emotional attachments or kind of like fabricate. You
think it's fabricated?
I'm not trying to like demonize the women here or say that they're making stuff up. I think that as like societally and culturally we're inventing an explanation to justify why it's worse for a woman to sleep around than than for men, and that's not really right, but that's just kind of the explanation.
Well, yeah, I think it really, I do think it's fabricated. I think it 100% is fabricated. Oh, yeah. It comes down to even, like, for my generation and back, that there are these sort of culturally accepted gender norms. Oh, God, I can't even believe I just said that whole statement. Where, you know, like, it's guys are out there sowing their wild oats, you know, like, it's okay, like, guys, you know, like, it's you know, it's another notch on the belt. It's, you know, like, in the sort of chest thumping, how many girls did you sleep with in university? Whereas there is that concept of girls, you know, should hold it in and hold themselves to a standard and only find that one guy and not really sleep around. And certainly we've all heard of, you know, like, girls that do sleep around, you know, the names that get called for them, whereas guys who sleep around don't get that name as much. Whereas I think it's just as equal, because from personal annotation, I know more girls who are more sexually ferocious than guys are. I think I was actually going to say ferocious, but either way works. In that the problem of it comes down to how it's perceived. You know, a guy will sit, you know, if a guy sits there and goes, you know what, I'm not just in it for the sex. I'm not, you know, just looking for a one-night stand. I want a relationship. He's going to be ostracized by his friends. Whereas a girl, if she says, you know what, I just want a one-night stand, I don't even care what he looks like, then she, you know, it's going to be certainly on her. Whereas both of those things exist, but how they're perceived is completely manufactured. It's what we've placed on guys and girls. So, yeah, there's my 2 cents.
Well, that's just way more eloquently put what I was trying to put forth.
No, yeah. So, but the sexual aspect of it is well, it's interesting. I don't want to hear about it, but it is interesting because. You know, you're talking about Della, I think it was talking about it, the complete detachment of sex from relationships and
casual sex and relationships, not just sex and relationships, right?
Okay, you're going to need to define that one for me. What's the difference?
What's the difference between
sex and casual sex?
Sex and casual. Well, there's the committed sex that you have with your significant other that you're exclusive with, and then there's the I'm not sure what we are, but let's just do this kind of sex, which is the casual sex, which is quite detached from whether you think your significant other is compatible in the long run or not. Like, you don't put that into perspective when you. So
you guys, and I'm trying to look at all of you, really do put a difference on the type of sex.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Please, more than yes.
I don't even know if it's a conscious decision sometimes. I think it's just that when you're going into an evening or whatever with a partner, and you're just in it for the sex, wanting to do that, wanting just the pure carnal satisfaction, then you're doing that. Whereas if it comes naturally as a part of a loving, committed relationship, then it just becomes something more, whether you want it to or not. If you have the right relationship with the person, it becomes less about just the action and more about the action with the person, and that's just a natural part of being intimate with someone.
Yeah, I think when it happens as part of a relationship, it's more symbolic of like the love or connection that the two people share.
Yeah, emotional connection.
Yeah, whereas when it's just some guy you met like at Seeps or on Tinder, it's more just that, like, as we talked about before, just the desire to connect with someone, and like the just very primitive urge that we all have, like, sexually as humans, and it's I mean, for lack of a better word, it's more meaningless, I guess.
Oh yeah. But I guess, that's why that's the problem we were talking about, is our generation. That's our problem, is we like to detach the two, where sex is not supposed to be separate from a committed, loving relationship, but now it is.
I was just going to say it. I think that's kind of where we get into trouble, too, as a single male who doesn't want to make that detachment at all. I think it's hard because sometimes it's expected, when you can't really find a relationship and you can't get into that relationship, but you still want to have the more meaningful intimacy. It's just kind of a little bit more difficult to navigate.
And interestingly, this circles right back around to how much of yourself are you willing to compromise?
Yeah.
do you want? Are you going to wait for Mrs. Right, or Miss Right, I guess, or go for Mrs. Right now? And for the ladies, same thing, or Mr. or Mrs. I mean, there's no judgment here. Whatever.
Yeah, I think the like hookup culture is really strong here in university in general. We have it's almost inherent that that everyone's okay with hooking up with someone before really getting to know them. But like I know, speaking for myself, that's not really something that I'm okay with. And it seems like that is more of a barrier to finding someone than really any other aspect of my personality, but just rather that I don't want to like sleep with someone before getting to know them.
Yeah, it's that instant gratification, is that if they're not gonna get it from you and they see that you're not really, they don't expect that from you, then they're gonna move on before they actually get to fall for you and compromise and wait for you to be ready. Right.
But don't you think that maybe that's an indication that this guy wasn't right?
Yeah.
But then, like, it's a cultural thing, I think, that even if that individual guy, for example, like, doesn't think that it's not always been his value, but just because everyone's doing it, it kind of becomes, like, the thing to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not that they are flat out saying, I don't want you because you don't want to have sex with me today. They just expect it to happen, and when it doesn't, they're like, oh, I guess
they judge your character or something.
But maybe I am interested,
that.
just not in that aspect of it right now.
So then it becomes down to how do you show interest other than sexually? Or how do you perceive interest? And guys always have a problem with that. And, well, I think everybody does. Before I open my mouth and put my foot in it after yelling at Della about something. A lot of people, I think, sort of have a problem when they're getting hit on and stuff like that.
I think it's like it's even I'd say it's an equal problem with girls, actually. Like, if you even watch girls because no one hits on people when they're sober anymore. So when you watch. No one in university.
Hey, Mon, how's it going?
When you watch people in the bar, like, if a guy walks away, and after hitting on a girl, she'll always be like, oh, he was so creepy, like, instead of, saying, like, oh, yeah, like, we just had a nice conversation, even if it really was just a normal conversation.
It's more of a, oh, look, he grabbed my ass, he must like me.
Like, he wants me.
Somebody else say something about that.
Not going to touch that one.
That's probably a good thing, especially in here.
My initial reaction to that, too, is just that it becomes a thing, too, where you can have two guys saying the exact same thing to the same girl, but she'll like it from one and not the other, just based on who the guy is and what he looks like and what have you. And that, again, kind of creates problems with, like, how to actually talk to people without just bringing sexuality into it, and how to kind of
avoid the friend zone.
Well, yeah, and present yourself, and how to present yourself when inherently there will be judgments based on kind of your sexual charisma or kind of base physical attraction, and that's kind of where a lot of people can run into trouble.
Yeah, so I think it's become almost an expectation to be sexually, like, open. Because that's the thing that will turn someone off before they get to know you more. So if you don't start off by being open or, like, ready for intimacy, then you never get to explore the other parts of that person, because it's just easier to walk away.
Yeah, because you have those girls that are willing and they are dressed in a prerogative sense, and that to guys, that's an easier reach of, to find someone.
And I guess that circles right back around to the instant gratification. It's, I could get to know you and maybe something will develop from that, or there's somebody right there. Yeah. So we did talk about it. I did want to bring it up at some point, and somebody mentioned it, so it's great. And that would be the friend zone. How have you guys been friend zoned? Have you ever looked into your friend zone? What do you think of the friend zone?
What is the friend zone?
It exists. I think it's an actual thing. It's also a convenient excuse for people to whine about their problems. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem. It's just kind of a thing that it exists. But it's for me, it's more telling of kind of how people view relationships and view their own kind of problems with relationships by tinting it through the lens of the friend zone, and kind of using that to color why they're kind of not having success and not really moving forward with the person that they want to. And it's always just kind of an interesting excuse for me, because the way it's used can always really determine kind of the nature of the problems that people are having.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I don't know. I don't have too much experience with the friend zone because I don't have a lot of friends that are guys. So,
of your guy.
Yes.
So Iman's an interesting case because she's the single that nobody understands why she's single.
Everybody knows why I'm single.
Do you have guys in the friend zone, like guys that you consider just friends? Have you even ever thought of them? Not Greg. Let's not go for Greg. We all know that one. We all know why there. But have you thought about it that way? Because now we're talking about, sort of your own personal growth and looking at what you're,
I mean, I wouldn't say that I have guys that I consider to be close friends, like any guys. Okay, other than Greg, who's
cool.
Getting angry over here. I wouldn't say that I have any close guy friends. Like, I have guy acquaintances, but I wouldn't call any guys in my life like a friend.
Oh. Wow. Della?
But I do. But I think like the guys, like that's why girls complain is why can't I find not you, Iman, but just girls. Why can't I find a really nice guy? Why can't I find someone who's not a buff boy? Sorry for swearing. But and I think is that we set these standards for ourselves, and these guys that are nice, we're like, well, we're gonna friend zone them because they don't meet, they're not we actually, they're too easy, or they're too nice, and they're too friendly. Mm-hmm. And maybe Iman does have those friends that could be.
Nope, she says she doesn't. We're done.
I question how much of a conscious decision that is too, though. I don't think people are like, this guy, he's clearly into me, but like, whatever, to the friend zone. I think it's just a thing that happens when you don't feel about a person the same way that they feel about you.
Yeah. It comes back to like the problems with communications, I think, though, and expressing yourself to people. If you don't know that a guy likes you, then how are you supposed to know that he's in your friend zone? Like, that's like something that I have never understood. Like, if you're not gonna come forward, then how am I supposed to know that you have a thing for me? I don't know.
Hi.
You approach them. Don't wait for the guy to approach you.
Yeah, but if I'm not consciously interested in you, but you like are interested in me, then we will never see this materialize, because you will complain to all your friends that you're in the friend zone, but you'll never tell me that you want to be out of the friend zone.
So yeah, back to the communication. Yeah. But then I guess the fear of it starts coming that, if I do make a move, or the guy hypothetically, that you're going to think that all I want is sex, when in reality there is more to it than that. So
well, I guess it's the way that people approach these conversations, because they usually don't happen in like, hi, I want to talk to you, let's talk, and it's more like you just kind of wait for it to bottle up, then you get really drunk, and then you're like, and then you start coming onto me or a girl in a way that indicates the sexual interest but not the emotional interest, even though both may be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the emotional, the sit down and let's talk should happen before the sex, but now I feel like, well, it's just around my friends, it's just it happens after. It's you have this you might like each other, and you jump into this physical relationship when you're both drunk or something, and then after a while, if one person gets hurt or something, because it's obviously not exclusive at that point, then they go and sit down and talk, like actually sit down and speak to one another about the thing of interest. So I think we've flip-flopped that sequence, I guess.
So anything else on that? I got one last thing I want to talk about with the last little bit, but I want to sort of wrap this one up, because it's all circular. It all comes back to each other in different ways. So does anybody have any? No?
I just had a little story that I thought of.
Go for it, please. I like stories.
And so a female friend of mine, was just kind of hanging out the other day, in the UCC, and a guy straight up just went up to her. It was was a friend of a friend, and just told her that he thought she was like really pretty girl. She seemed really nice because they'd met a few times, and then asked her out right there. And I just remember this kind of story going around to so many people just because it seemed so bizarre and so out of the blue, and so like so much of an outlier as to what usually happens, that it kind of really made me think about kind of all the stuff we're talking about, and kind of really put things into perspective, how that probably was so commonplace not too many years ago, but for this day and age it was just the most bizarre thing to happen, and it's a huge story.
There's always the element of nervousness, and as we talked about earlier about the fear of rejection and stuff like that, and I gotta give hats off to the guy for literally just being brave enough to go up to somebody and say that. So
for sure, I was impressed.
And what happened with that?
What was the end result?
She said yes, they went out on a date.
Well, there you go, guys.
They went out on a date again after that, and then I don't know what happened, so
Goals.
Finished story.
Goals.
That's what I'm waiting for.
If you're listening to this, like, all the best to you too.
So, but there's the other side of it. Why don't you do it, Amon?
Like, personally, I just haven't found anyone that I'm interested in.
Okay, cool.
Well, that's interesting. We'll come back to that probably off the air, but I'm running out of time. I knew it was going to end up like this too, which I'm great. Like, this is absolutely amazing. But so the last one that I want to talk to you about, which some of us have heard, other people haven't. It caused a really awesome, I don't want to say conversation because there's a little bit more heated than that, but it has to do with the idea of coming, I'm going to put it this way, of coming to university to find your partner. And that's your sole goal for coming here. It used to be, the old adage was women came to university to get their MRS degree. And some people have heard of it, other people hadn't. What do you guys think of that? And the flip side of it is, if there's an environment full of women who want to come to find their partners, then the guys have to know that, well, I can come to university to find my partner. It's just, it doesn't seem to focus that way. But, so what do you guys think of that?
I think that, like many other things, if this is not something that affects you, it's not something that you maybe know about. So if you're somebody who has maybe always had like an easy time finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend, then maybe this is not a major goal for you. But like, I have to admit that it was not at all my primary goal of coming to university. But yeah, I was hoping to find someone, maybe not a forever kind of person, but like you do expect that based on pop culture and just expectations that you have. And I don't think that it should be by any means the main focus for anyone coming into higher education, paying so much money for that. But it's a concern, and I have it. So I imagine that many other people do as well. So I don't think it's like too far out of reach.
Yeah, and I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we very bluntly, very frankly just said, outside of university, how do you actually meet people? Like, what if you're a working adult in the real world, how do you actually find a partner like that? Like, how does that? I honestly have no idea. So hopefully the clock's ticking for Greg here. So hopefully I figure that out. But so it comes back to that idea of, you're in a place where there's so many other people, and kind of it's almost so convenient to have access to so many potential partners that there's plenty of fish in the sea, but if the sea is so big that you can't really swim into anybody, then you might need something smaller, and university is a good kind of mitigating ground for that. And so I obviously wouldn't really advocate going to university just to find a partner, but it's something that to an extent you can kind of expect to have some experience with, and to have some relations with.
Right. So would you agree that if you are looking for a relationship in university, you do have to consider if you're compatible on a higher level than just if you guys get along and you're physically attracted to each other? Like, do you feel like we should be more responsible for ourselves and others to like think about, would we work out in the future? Because I know that a lot of people like to avoid the talk of like, let's think into the future and plan our future, and I see that in the first and second years especially.
I think, like, in response to that, I think that it's not so much that should be an expectation, but I think, like, if that's something you're interested in, this is the time, like, seize the day, because you have clubs where you can join based on common interests, and you can find someone without outright saying like, this is my value. Do you also possess this value? When you can just join a group where you know that that person possesses the same value as you.
And these things happen slowly too. You don't just lay all your cards on the table all at once. You kind of slowly ease into them after you start getting to know people. I guess ideally anyway, or typically.
Yeah, that really wasn't the response I was actually expecting. Particularly with the other person we talked about she kind of got upset. I can't find a nicer word for it. She wasn't mad at anybody. It was a good conversation. So it's certainly interesting. There's other universities, or I believe it's a college just down in Hamilton. You can Google it yourself. Who that's a huge chunk of their reputation is people go there to get hitched. Or at least find the person that they're going to. But I got sort of one last one, and it's mostly pertaining to Della. Okay. And it's university is really weird, particularly when it comes to relationships, in that you have 2 months of school where 3 months of school where you deal with somebody, and then you have upwards of a 4-week break, depending on how your exam schedule is. And then you come back for another 3 or 4 months, and then it's 4 months off. And how do you deal with that? And you guys as well. Maybe not Amon. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So single.
How do you deal with that? That, like it's April 26th, exams are done, and you're like, I live in Vancouver.
You deal with it differently depending on the stage of your relationship. Me and my boyfriend have gone through a summer already, but it was a different situation. Whereas we were exclusive, but we weren't dating. So that summer we decided, I know. No time to go into that, but we were exclusive, we weren't dating, so we decided to be single for that summer. But now coming around to this April, of course we're going to face it differently, and we are going to be still in a relationship, but it'll be a much harder 4 months apart. And I'm on the other side of Canada. There's no way I'm going to see him this summer, but we have it's a fear that I do have, and is it going to drive us apart or bring us closer when we come back? But that comes with a university relationship, and these are I think more these are bigger challenges that you'd face in high school, right? So I think it kind of makes us stronger, and I appreciate these challenges. So we'll see by September. I'll let you know.
Okay, yeah, that'd be nice. We'll do a follow-up episode. Just Greg and Amon won't be here. Oh, that's such a sad thought. I'm not gonna. Anyway, do either Greg or Amon have anything to sort of add to that, either from personal experience? Or?
That was a key contributing factor as to why my last relationship failed. So I feel like I don't really have much to contribute.
It does.
Oh, there were.
Do you mind talking about that though, Greg, for the last minute or so?
So
no.
It was it had been dating for about 2 years. So actually the first summer wasn't that bad. We weren't from the same city, and I actually had to stay here in London for the summer, but that was okay. We kind of worked it out. But for the kind of the summer after that, I was actually away in the States for the majority of the summer. And she actually had to have a surgery on her leg, so she was couldn't really move around or do all that much all summer, and I, being a full country away, couldn't really be there for her in that way, and the distance and kind of the circumstances just kind of compiled and didn't really foster a good relationship, and neither of us really handled it all that well. So,
well, why didn't you guys just? I mean, it's 4 months. It's not a perpetual, length of time. It's just these 4 months. Why couldn't you just pull through? And
it's the $1 million question.
Yeah, that's one of those unanswerables, I think.
It's frustrating, yeah.
And I sort of get the feeling from it that it was probably not the person who was sitting in the room who could give you that answer. Am I correct on that one? Oh, I'm not. Oh, no, it's nice to make assumptions.
It's tough to say. Right. I don't have a good answer to that question, to be perfectly honest. I don't think either of us would.
And unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop it right there. We're hitting the end of it. I knew we were going to get there. We were going to get to this point where it was like, all right, now we're all comfortable. We're just going to get into it, and we're done. The good news is we're actually going to do another conversation on it, just not with everybody in this room. There was such a positive response to this, and there's my alarm, that we're going to do another show on it. And I think either before the end of the year or maybe next year we'll cycle around to it again with whoever's here. Maybe we'll invite Greg and Amon back if they're in the area, you know.
Happily married together.
And maybe they won't be single. That'll be nice. All right.
That's quick.
I really, really want to thank everybody for listening to the forum, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.